King's got 'em. The Simpsons for $3.49.
George, Paul, and Ringo were still calling themselves the Beatles. Today, 1990. In our cover story, Rory Bennett explores the Beatles then and now.
It's your birthday. It's my birthday too, yeah. It's your birthday.
It's a birthday present only a fellow Beatle could pull off. This week, Paul McCartney released his own live version of the song Birthday to mark what would have been John Lennon's 50th birthday. McCartney himself is 49. For many years, McCartney worked hard to distance his solo career from the Beatles, refusing to play their hits on his tours. But now he's embraced the Beatles' music again. It's a move many say has brought his career and the story of the Beatles to closure.
If you think about it, you know, the Beatles had to always cope with expectations. After your first successful album, you've got to cope with the expectations, and we've all experienced that. So it's just as well, you know, I'd rather be doing this than be a new band starting up with no expectations.
Today, Paul McCartney is one of the richest men in the world, the most commercially successful musician in history. He's sold more than 100 million albums, outdoing pop stars like Michael Jackson and Madonna. And McCartney may be one of the finest songwriters of our time.
A lot of the songs that just make people swoon are the McCartney ballads, Yesterday and The Long and Winding Road and Here, There and Everywhere. And a lot of the songs that if you hear them on the radio or you hear them on a record, you just sort of melt because they just cut right to the heart.
But before they became the Beatles, they were four young men playing other people's songs. It began at the Cavern Club in Liverpool. But by February of 1964, John, Paul, George, and Ringo were playing in living rooms across America.
The Beatles.
All of a sudden, the Beatles came along, and in February of '64, we're on the Ed Sullivan Show with a completely different look at an absolutely exciting sound with I Want to Hold Your Hand and She Loves You. And it just turned the industry upside down. They stepped into a huge void and filled it up with such excitement and such flair.
1, 2, 3, 4. Well, she was just 17.
Their music became a symbol of a generation. They looked different, they sounded different, they seemed to move to a different rhythm. Like Elvis Presley before them, the Beatles had their share of detractors. But the more we heard, the more we listened, and the more we knew the Beatles had become a part of our lives.
That first year in 1964, I don't think it was that they were saying anything new or anything that hadn't been said before. Those songs weren't revolutionary. I Want to Hold Your Hand and She Loves You and Can't Buy Me Love. They were traditional pop songs. They were just great, exciting records. I don't think most people really were aware of how gifted they were as songwriters until yesterday.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away.
That was the song that turned everybody around and made everybody realize how brilliant they were.
In yesterday.
Wherever the Beatles took their music, we seemed to follow, and we followed even as the generations drifted apart. By 1967, their songs about love and life had become anthems for an entire generation. With all of the music they've written, with all of the lives they have touched, it's hard to believe the Beatles recorded together for only 6 years. But in that time, the Lennon-McCartney songwriting duo matured to a degree many believe has never been matched, and may never be.
Beatle music is good power, and it's a power that would last very long.
Well, I think the Beatles had more talent than artists today. I think their songs were stronger and their imagination, as evidenced in their songs and their films and their image and look, you know, I think they were a superior act. You know, the Beatles definitely reflected their era, and I think if they had come along in the 90s, they would reflect this era.
As solo artists, each has earned respect and commercial success, though Paul McCartney more than the others.
Reputations changeable,
George Harrison recorded a string of hits and managed to show a lighter side with the Traveling Wilburys. But philanthropy has long been Harrison's main emphasis. He and his wife Olivia are now involved with a benefit project for Romanian refugee children.
Nobody's child. Nobody's child.
Ringo Starr's battle with alcoholism took a toll on his career in 1987, but he's celebrating 2 years of sobriety, and his performance on Tom Petty's video seemed to give Ringo new inspiration. As the years pass, it appears unlikely the remaining Beatles will ever reunite for a performance. But their music has left an indelible mark on the world. They've influenced entire generations of musicians. And for millions of fans, the Beatles will always be together.
I've loved them all.